Hey, what's up, everybody? And thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's most badass digital agency owners. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name is Chris Martinez, CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so they can take on more website projects and scale profitably. And I am very excited because I think that we have our very first actual client who's joining us for the podcast, my good friend, Chris Bates, CEO of Agora Eversole. Welcome to the show, Chris. So glad that we could finally get you on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Man, this is fun and exciting to connect with you and all of that. I didn't realize that we were the first one, because I've listened to your podcast for a while. Didn't realize the first one is your client. That's cool.
I think so. It's something that I don't know why we haven't reached out to more of our clients. And we talked about having you on the podcast. So my bad for not getting you on sooner, but I am very excited to have you on to share your words of wisdom and how you've been able to grow Agora Eversole and all the cool things that you're doing. So we're going to get into that in a second. But as you know, we always start off every interview with a roundtable discussion. And today we're going to talk about something that we are both passionate about, which is, the outdoors life, camping, hiking. You like to river raft. You're also a fisherman and a hunter. So, talk to us about how you kind of fell in love with the outdoors and all this cool stuff that you're doing outside and seeing nature and stuff.
It's such a core part of who I am. And the reason for that is, to answer your question, is because both of my grandfathers were just, avid outdoorsmen and kind of all of the above, hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff. And my dad was the same way, and brought my brother and I up doing that. Man, I mean, I remember sitting in a freezing cold duck blind at probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, so cool. Teeth chattering and all that kind of stuff, and had family out west, actually, kind of up north of you, and that lived out there, that we used to go out there a couple of times a year and go fishing with. Mm-hmm. So, man, all the rivers all over Oregon and Montana and a lot of that area, and so and the how diverse that is compared to here in the heart of the South. And it's a different outdoor situation, but I don't really care wherever it is, whatever it is, as long as I'm outdoors and doing all of that. I've done it since I was a little, Chris.
That's great, man. So I'm a city boy, and I didn't really fall in love with camping. We're tent campers. So, I didn't fall in love with camping until maybe like 2010. And we went camping when I was a kid, but, it's different out here because the cities are so big. There's so much urban sprawl. You do have to get very far away. I grew up in LA, so you have to go a long distance to really get that camping experience. And even if you go to Sequoia or Yosemite or Idlewild, it just feels like it's still very much a part of in the city. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it. I love the camaraderie and being able to spend time with the family and that sort of thing. But once I started doing it again as an adult, and it helped me to get out of the rat race and really disconnect from technology and business and that sort of thing, that's when I really fell in love with it. And then, luckily my fiance absolutely loves camping as well. So, and what most people don't know is that, just 45 minutes east of San Diego, you have some of the most amazing mountain ranges and ecosystems. It's just so unique, and so we love to go over there. We've gone camping down here in Mexico as well. And it's beautiful, man. I love it. Now I've never hunted and I've never been good at catching fish. So what are some of your tips, from a fishing standpoint? Let's start with that one. What's some of the things that helps you to catch fish? I feel like they hate me.
No. I think the key thing there is who you go with and what you do, because everybody's got to learn from somebody. Mm-hmm. And, I learned from my granddads and then my dad, and, but it's also guys that I've taught fishing, whether it's around here and it's bass fishing and that kind
Hmm.
of thing, or whether it's fly fishing out west. Because I was taught all of those things by people that were patient enough,
Yeah.
to go, no, that's not how you do this. And I think that's part of the thrill of it too,
Yeah.
is the willingness to learn, and the hunting stuff is the same way,
Yeah.
and when you do that, that's such a part of the enjoyment. You mentioned the camaraderie,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that's one-on-one, or just a small group of folks that are doing that together. Man, that's some of what's greatest about it, is learning and what not to do.
Yeah, totally.
It's one of those sets of things, man, whether you're talking about backcountry hiking, which you can really screw up, or whether you're talking about, hunting or fishing, whatever the case may be, Chris. It's learning from what you do wrong, and how to fix it looks like a squirrel's nest in a fishing reel because you completely screwed up how to do that. You do that enough times, you're going to pay attention and learn how to do it the right way.
Yeah, totally. All right, last question about this. What is your favorite or one of your most memorable moments from, hunting, fishing, camping, whatever it is? What's your favorite outdoor moment that you've had?
Oh, wow. With a lifetime of them, that's hard to say.
I know it's a
I'll
loaded
tell you,
question.
I'll point back to this. I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and everything in the southern states here froze, and we had one of those massive cold fronts come through.
Hmm.
So my grandfather and my dad and I went over and were duck hunting over on the Mississippi River, which is really big and really dangerous if you don't
Yeah.
know what you're doing. But anyway, so we got in this backwater, and man, we spent the day. We actually got our limit of ducks really quickly because there were just tons of them everywhere.
Hmm.
And then we put all of our equipment down, Chris, and just sat and watched and just took that in. And I remember my grandfather at the time was getting fairly elderly, and
Yeah.
man, he was shaking from the excitement, and the boat was kind of rattling just from the adrenaline of being a part of that experience and watching all of that. So, man, I've got a whole encyclopedia of memories like that are just really such part of who I am.
Yeah, that's great. I can just picture it in my mind, but I think that ties into kind of like how most agency owners feel about life. It's like I don't meet a lot of us who are necessarily money or like thing driven. Like I think a lot of us get into it just because in our core, like we want to create these really like amazing experiences. Because at the end of the day, like there's no replacement for that memory that you had with your grandfather and all the other thousands of memories that you had, which is really cool. So I'm glad that you were able to share that story with us. So let's talk about Agora Eversole. So you've had a very like kind of, I would say, unique agency experience, and now you guys are on the horizon of some really massive growth, which is amazing for me to see from the outside. So why don't you give us your kind of like your origin story, like where you came from and like how you got into this crazy agency world?
Oh man, yeah. So I, after college and some little bit of life traveling and all that, I was a nonprofit executive for about a decade. I
Hmm.
did that for two different organizations. Learned a lot, and actually learned a lot through fundraising and those types of things about marketing.
Hmm.
And then totally changed gears and had an outdoor sporting goods store for about a decade as well. And here's the tip for that. If you go into the retail business doing something that you love, you never get to do it. My busiest times were during hunting season and when the fish were biting and all that kind of stuff. And that's
Yeah.
when I was working 9 days a week. So,
Right.
yeah, but I always did most of my own marketing, in that I'm not a designer. I would always, find designers to help and those types of things. But the strategy and the how to and finding offers to draw people in and those types of things was always what I had so much passion about. And then 2008, 2009 hit. And, my retail operation was expendable income to people.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a depressed economy, that's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to sell the store to another group, and that was not the plan at all, but became the right thing to do very quickly.
Yeah. Well, think
So,
about it from today's standpoint too. I mean,
yep,
retail just got crushed.
exactly. And man, I
So,
can so relate to that. So, yeah, so in 2009, with a crappy old $300 laptop and a desire to serve people, literally, I kind of embarked on this and had some connections with people that, hey, you did a good job with your own marketing. Why don't you come give me a hand? And like so many agency folks, Chris, they were like, well, come help us with this and this, and how much do you want to charge? I, I don't know, man. How about $300? And I would end up working 19 hours for them
yeah,
that month,
it's
and
like charge. Oh, yeah, I guess I can
yeah,
charge for this stuff.
so invoice. Oh, I don't have
Yeah, what's that?
So, you know, it then began to be a process of becoming intentional about something that I had not expected to do. And I like what you just said about entrepreneurs, because it was really that drive to find something that I had passion about and combine that with the knowledge and experience and I guess the skills that I had to help people that ran businesses. And that was kind of how Agora started. And it built to the point that I had to hire a designer, and then we got to a point that maybe we can talk about in a little while, kind of my most important hire a few years in, and then kind of how that happened, and built that agency. And 10 years later, had an opportunity to merge with another like size agency, which is what we did at the beginning of this year, and became Agora Eversole. And here we are. So it's kind of an amazing story to stop for a moment and really tell it from the from the beginning stages, Chris.
Yeah, no, I love it. So, well, let's talk about that first hire, because we try and have a lot of the focus of the show on the operations specifically. One of the reasons why we call it Operation Agency Freedom. So, from a hiring standpoint, you said that you had that kind of like epiphany, life-changing hire. What was that? Who was that person, and what was the motivation behind wanting to bring them on board?
Well, the answer is a project manager.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point, I had a full-time designer and another one, I think it was freelance and all that kind of stuff. And just like everybody that starts in this industry, I was doing everything myself except the
Mm-hmm.
design. So the client relations, the systems, the implementation, the media placement, all of the above. And I'm not a designer and I'm not a developer. So I fell in between because my role is really the client relations and the strategy and all of that. So I knew that was the essential next step for growth. So I had built it, which is a really big deal for me. To that point, this was probably 3 years in, 2.5, 3 years in, strictly on cash.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go borrow money. I wasn't floating on, loans or anything else. And coming from the retail business, that was a drastic change, because in the retail world, you're floating huge lines of credit. And I was determined not to do that in building this agency.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I really didn't even know I was building an agency. I just wanted to grow a marketing company.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I took on a minority investment partner at the time who was going to funnel in enough cash to be able to hire a project manager to take us to the next level. And there was a 6-month plan. After that hire, there was a 2-year plan. There were certain markers that we wanted to reach, that once we invested in hiring a project manager that was really going to help us to be the catalyst to scale and to grow. And it was a huge risk. It was scary, but it worked.
That's great.
Yep.
So when you started out in the agency, because I know you have a niche now, but when you started out, who were some of the clients that you were taking on?
I'll tell you that because of my background in nonprofit and in
Uh-huh.
retail,
Uh-huh.
those were some of the people that I knew.
Yeah.
And I could do the lingo. I could do the industry speak. So those were some of the ones that I went after. And I could say, hey, I've sat in your seat. I've run a retail operation. I at least at the beginnings of an e-commerce project. And so I've done all of that. So, hey, I can do that for you. So the client base initially, not by intention, is niching, but was really kind of nonprofit and retail. But what it ended up being, Chris, over those first 3, 4, 5 years was those and anybody else that would write a check. So, I ended up having a lot of retail and nonprofit clients, but man, real estate and all kinds of just decluttering businesses, just anything and everything that would hire us to either build a website, do their brand build out, do their social, whatever the case may be. And that made it tough.
Yeah. Well, you know what I call it, man? When you're starting out, your customers, your niche is CC and P. Anybody with a credit card and a pulse.
You got it.
So looking back, what were some of the challenges or mistakes that you might have made, as you were getting up and running and, working with anybody and everybody?
Two big ones come to mind. One is, like many of us, I tend to be a micromanager. So even after we had a project manager and then we hired a web developer and, so the team started to grow and the scope of work started to grow and the scope of the client started to grow. And we kind of started getting some bigger projects and all of that. And man, I had and my team would tell you this, even through to today, I had a hard time letting go. And, I needed to go. You always hear work on the business, not in the business and all that. But man, I should have sped that process up for me, Chris, I would say is one mistake, because I was careful to find the right people that were two things: good people that were service minded and shared my heart for service, and were really good at what I hired them to do. And so I should have turned some of that stuff over to them a little more quickly. And so I think that was part of the mistake. And then also, the longer that I was in this industry, I started hearing that the success trait and pathway was to niche. But I don't know. I guess it was a combination of things. I was scared of it. As I started to find maybe what a niche or some specific niches could be, then all of a sudden a construction company would hire us to do a web project. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll get to that niching later. In my business development process, let's go do this other big project. And, so probably for a little too long, I was kind of all over the place as far as the industries that we were working with.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think that every single agency owner goes through. Both of those, the letting go and, finding a niche, and kind of, in many ways, you have to turn down money. You have to turn down projects so that you stay laser focused on your niche, which is very, very difficult, especially after you started it from nothing. It was your baby. And, now you're like, oh man, like, do I really have to turn down those projects? Cause I would have killed for them 2 years ago. What are some of the things that or I don't know if it was a moment that you had where you realized, like, I gotta, let go of the reins, or if it's you learned something from somebody or a technique that you use, but what really helped you to let go of some of that control and just, let the people that you hired do their job?
Systems. And your team calls it SOPs too, but
yeah.
When you get into establishing processes and systems, Chris, I was able to begin to take a step back. So we found I tried 2 or 3 project management software platforms. I fell in love with Teamwork. It's great, but every Basecamp and all that. There's tons of them out there. Find the one that fits you is what I would advise. But so we found that, and I started pushing our small team of 4 or 5 at that point to start living in it. Don't tell me, just put it in there. and so using a project management system is just kind of one example. But then without me even labeling it that way, probably we started developing these SOPs as to the same kind of ways that we would do things and started doing that on the client side. So, for example, once my project manager had onboarded, I don't know how many, but a number of clients over a long enough period of time, then I figured out, she can really do that well.
Yeah.
So I don't even need to necessarily sit in the room anymore.
Right.
I certainly don't need to run the meeting. I don't need to sit in the room anymore. And what if I go do business development while she's doing, what she knows how to do well with onboarding and then bringing it back to our team and putting it in our project management system and setting up, recurring check-in meetings with the clients and all that. So I could go on, but the more of those systems that we put into place, it enabled me to go walk down the hallway and go do my day job, and do things in business development and maybe finance and, personnel or whatever the case may be at that time. And it's continued to evolve. So that's the answer to that is, man, those systems just let us start to scale and let me start backing out as the owner and start going and doing the things I really needed to be doing.
Awesome. Well, now you're at or you've experienced recently another major turning point in your agency where you've gone through a merger, which is really, really exciting, something that I've never done. So give us some intel on that and what you guys did and how you got through that process and what you're doing now.
Yeah. It actually ties in with the niching that we were talking about a minute ago. So probably almost 3 years ago now, through a mutual connection, we had some work outsourced to us because we met somebody that was here in the same metro area as us, that was a comparable size agency that always had done traditional marketing. And they kept having their clients, which was a large number of community banks, start asking them for additional services, web, social media, on and on, which was really from a service provision standpoint what we did.
Yep.
So this guy and I met, and he said, "Hey, how about you guys kind of jump in? And we've got a client that needs a website, so we'll kind of outsource it through you guys, and so on and so forth." Well, I didn't know that was the beginning of what became a really great partnership that then resulted in a merger. Because the more of those that we did, man, it just started making more and more sense. For us, it started moving us into a niche area, and we were really good at the service provision. We started getting pretty good at web dev and social media management and digital advertising and all of even design and some of the things that we were doing, and they were really good at traditional marketing. And so we began to find that adding more items to the menu to that same niche industry, boy, it started to get some traction. And so, man, I'm sitting there doing a devotional one morning, literally, and it just occurred to me. I was like, I need to just go ask him. So I did. I took him to lunch one day and I said, "What do you think about merging?" And, I think he had been thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So it was just symmetry, and, then it's evolved from there, Chris. And yeah.
So the actual merger itself, I just sold the agency that I started, and it was an absolute nightmare. The process was awful. But with the merger, because you guys had such a great relationship, what was that like? Was it an easy process? Was it pain-free? Did anybody's feelings get hurt? What happened?
No, it really was a symmetry for us. I sold that big retail store and had some major challenges in it and all that. So yes, I've bought, sold, and done that with businesses. This one was pretty seamless, and I think because I guess the timing was right, the split of talents was right. He had a team of about 5. I had a team of about 5. Chris, even revenues, we were fairly comparable. And our kind of other little niche, I say little, but our other niche is we work in healthcare as well. So anywhere from 1 to 15 doctor practices.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to do all of that and started bringing all these talents and service provision opportunities over to community banking. And man, just it fit. We found a couple of attorney guys that really knew how to kind of do these small business mergers well, and and our merger even if included my now partner's retirement because he's several years older than I am, and what that was going to look like long term. So man, it just ended up being a great fit for both companies from a finance, legal, all standpoints. And I'll say this too, as our teams got to know each other, we had, I think, a similar mission, Chris, and that was, again, I keep going back to this term of service. Their team was very service-minded, quickly responsive, really wanted to help their clients grow at the end of the day, which is the exact same thing that we were doing.
Yep.
And so when you start putting it's deeper, it's beyond just culture. It is culture, but it's really a vision and mission approach of what is it that you want to do at the end of the day.
Yep.
And what that was for both of us was really wanting to serve people and through that to the people that they serve. And so it just ended up being a great fit.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so many lessons here. I think the first one is just the importance of the relationship that you have with other people, the relationships that you have with other people. Because if you didn't have that strong relationship with the person that you ended up merging with, one, you're probably not going to merge, but two, it's probably not going to be as smooth, right? If there's some level of ego in there, or, I'm better than that person in some way, that merger doesn't happen as easily. And people's feelings get hurt. That's like the first lesson. And then the second one is like what you mentioned with the values part of it. Owners are in this industry, at least in my experience, we are deeply passionate about serving our clients. That doesn't always translate into the people that they ended up hiring, and especially when you're looking at designers and developers, their unique personalities, oftentimes they just want to program. They see the people as kind of like a necessary evil and that sort of thing. And, the staff that I've met, and you've kind of talked about it as well, is your staff are passionate about helping other people. At the end of the day, that's what they care about. And they also understand that we have to exceed the expectations of our clients to receive our own paychecks. And that's rare, that's not something that people are conscious about when they're looking for teammates in their own agency. So you've done a great job of that. Your partner that you've merged with, they've done a great job of that. And, I think it speaks volumes because you guys are growing and helping, people in your niche, all over the place. So, which is great.
Chris, the other big important piece of this too, is we mentioned scale at a couple of points during this conversation. But I did begin to learn a couple of years ago, actually, the value of having white label partners and what that can mean to scale. Because in my previous business, I had 45 employees. I had this massive debt load. I had all this kind of stuff. And I've known that those are not things that I wanted to ever do again.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
you can say it, man.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting in lots of ways. So what I did want to do was obviously continue to scale and grow the agency, but I didn't and don't want to have to continue to hire more and more and more people. So how do you do that? Well, the catch up to present day is that we found, a good web service and web dev, design and dev partner. And we actually had one for a couple of years, and then you and I met about a year ago. And this isn't a sales pitch for Dude, but you and I just had a conversation at a trade show at a marketing conference, right?
Yep.
And tons of digital marketing people there and all of that. And I knew from our conversation that you had some elements in the way that you had designed Dude that were going to help us continue to scale in ways that we needed to. Things like the right kind of connectivity with our project managers and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then we were fortunate enough to find a similar partner on the digital advertising side. And the list kind of goes on. So while we are about 11 folks now, I guess, if we add your team and this other team and everybody else, yeah, we're probably 50 or 60, strong as an agency in what we're able to provide to clients.
Yep.
But I'm keeping it at a size that we're able to kind of have the kind of culture and that type of thing that I really want to have. And the plan is to continue to grow that way, Chris.
Well, first of all, I say thank you for the kudos, but another testament to you guys is you just have great people. Like, we're very particular about who we work with, and your pod leader and all the people that are on your team, they love you guys. Like, they enjoy communicating with you. They love doing the work. And I think that's another reason. And so, like, we're 50% of that equation, but your 50% is pretty crucial, and you've done a really good job of bringing in good people. So hugs all around, basically.
Yeah, that's right. And it's because of having the right people here.
Yep.
I've always been very big on hiring the right people, even if I need to help teach them the role that they need to play specifically in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best hires that I ever made in my retail years had never worked a day in his life in retail.
Yep.
Dude, I hired him at management level.
Wow.
So I taught him the retail things, but he was the right kind of person, and ended up in that role being one of the best managers that I ever had. Well, the same holds true here. Granted, everybody that's on board here has either brought a lot of valuable, graphic design or project management or sales, biz dev or web dev, experience to the table. But it was far more important to me that they were the right kind of people.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And so I appreciate your compliment very much. It's a compliment to them, not to me, for sure.
As a great leader would say. Well, we're out of time, Chris. So, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Just reach out to me through our website, Chris, AgoraEversole.com. Agora is the Greek word for marketplace.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of wonder where in the world that came from. It's the center of the marketplace, and so that was an intentional part of this. So yeah, reach out to me through AgoraEversole.com. We are always on the lookout as far as other agencies. I'm not one of those that considers other agencies competition. To me, they are potential referral partners and partners in lots of ways. So I would invite folks to reach out to me that way anytime.
And who would be the perfect person to reach out to you today?
Our clients are community banks primarily throughout the Southeast and several around the country. And again, we work with a lot of healthcare practices, those types of things, even some small hospitals. But so those obviously are the ideal, but we're also looking to, referral and strategic agency partners that maybe work in those industries elsewhere. So those
Awesome.
are always opportunities as well, Chris.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys all for tuning in today. And make sure that you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom. Bye, guys.